Welcome to the Porch Roof Classic, a retro baseball podcast novel in 15 or so episodes by Jeff Pullman. Episode 12. 10 o'clock that night, Izzy called me in a panic. "We lost Scotty!" "What?" "I tried calling them and their phone was disconnected, so I called Jamie Steger because she's friends with Scotty's sister, and guess what? Their dad got some new job out west and they moved in like 2 days." "What kind of job?" "Who the heck knows? Who cares? Nobody even knows where they went. We're finished." It sounded a little suspicious to me, like everything involving Scotty Vezzo's dad. But Izzy was right. It didn't matter. We were truly finished. I sat out on the back porch for most of that 1970 Sunday, listened to Sgt. Pepper and Magical Mystery Tour over and over on our portable record player. The Sox swept a doubleheader from the Twins with Yaz, Rico, and Reggie Smith all homering, so at least Robbie was happy. Scotty's disappearance and the shame of the 18th room hung over the house like a poisonous fog bank, and Dad and Mom quietly read the Sunday paper in the living room. "I could have told you not to bring Bill in that place," was all Mom said. "Yeah, but you didn't," was all Dad replied. Monday was a new week, and more suspenseful right off the bat. The Porch Roof Classic was just 5 days away, and we had a bunch of Scotty-less afternoon practices scheduled. But first there was Irv's crazy lunchtime counter to deal with. Right when I was in the middle of taking 3 orders and clearing away a pile of dirty plates, Irv suddenly whispered in my ear, "I don't know who she is, but she's asking for you." I looked across the room to a small corner booth and saw Helen Fishblatt seated alone with a glass of ice water. "Holy crap," I muttered. She smiled at me with droopy eyes. I did not smile back, quickly gave my order tickets to the cook, and carefully approached the booth. She was wearing ripped bell-bottom jeans, a brown peasant top with embroidered flowers down the front, and looked like she hadn't slept in a week. There was a giant backpack on the seat beside her that bulged at the seams. "Hi, Joey. You hate me now, right?" "No, Helen, I don't hate you. But why did you lie to me?" "I didn't lie. I just didn't fill you in." I slipped into the booth across from her. "Okay, so fill me in. You got 1 minute, and then I got to get back to work." "I love that you have a job, by the way. It's cool seeing you all hup. What's going on with you, Helen?" She leaned back in the booth, glugged the rest of her ice water, and began chewing on the cubes. "Yeah, hasn't been my best summer. Basically, my aunt went on a military cop jag and wouldn't let me do a damn thing anymore. So I seized power and split." "Oh, Camp Muckalake didn't do you any good, I guess?" "Not at all. Except I did get to meet you." She conjured up a smile, but it passed. "I think Phyllis thought the summer camp would make a woman out of me or something. Did I ever tell you she was 4 hours late that day picking me up?" "So what are you doing here?" She took a few sugar packets out of a small rack of them on the table, turned them over in her fingers. Her voice shook. "I need a place to crash, Joey, real bad, even if it's just for a few weeks." "Oh, is that like squatting?" She gave me a blank look. "I'm not even sure what that is." "Crashing is what I said. It means staying over. Never mind. I know what it is." "I just wouldn't know what to tell my mom and dad." "Oh, that's easy. How about that I'm just around for a few weeks, that I'm getting a part-time job, that I can help your mom cook and clean. She likes me, you know." "You're getting a job? Where?" Helen looked around the deli and shrugged. "I don't know. Why not here?" I stared at her, unsure whether to laugh. Then she was on her feet and marching to the front door, where a pair of elderly women stood patiently, obviously not seeing our sign that said, "Please seat yourself." Helen snatched a pair of menus off a counter before she got there. "Afternoon, ladies," she cooed. "Two today?" "Yes, please," said one of the ladies. Helen glanced around the room and spotted a recently vacated booth 2 away from ours. It was littered with dirty dishes, and she motioned for me to bus it. I didn't move. "Is a booth all right, ladies? We're having one cleared as we speak. It'll just be a minute." I fumed, rolled my eyes, and went behind the counter for a dish tub. Irv peeked out from between 2 bread racks and was on me in seconds. What exactly is your daffy broad doing over there? I fumbled for an answer, but he wouldn't wait, slung his wet dish towel over his shoulder and marched over to Helen. Can I help you with something, miss? No, thank you, said the old lady. Your nice hostess is getting us a booth. I'm sorry, but she's not our hostess. Oh, but she should be. Yeah, said Helen. Don't you think we need one? We? Are you Irv? You have to be Irv, right? Because I walked in here for the first time just now and I thought, man, this Irv really needs a hostess. You trying to tell me how to run my business? It's Helen. Hi, Helen Fishblatt. And not at all. I'm just offering you a bit of free help because I think you could use it. Number 4 is cleared, I yelled. Excellent. She turned back to her two new friends with a dazzling smile and handed both of them menus. Enjoy your meal, ladies. Thank you, sweetie, said the one with the bluer hair. And then two old couples entered the place. Helen snatched more menus off the rack. Table for 4, right? Stop that, said Irv, his complexion getting more volcanic every second. Helen gave him an irresistible smile. Tell you what, I'll host this today for free. In fact, I'll give you an entire week for free. And by then, your customers will realize how happy they are and be telling all their friends and their Uncle Milt how delicious and friendly it is at Irv's wonderful delicatessen. It was the first and only time I would ever see Irv speechless. Unfortunately, speeches were in style at my house that night, starting with Mom's. It's not that I don't like her, Joey. She's just a little bohemian. I had made Helen wait on the back porch so I could plead with Mom and Dad in private. One crazy political comment out of her could have sunk the whole mission. She doesn't even have a job, groaned Dad, as if that alone were some monumental slice of human failure. One that pays, maybe, but she's working on that. Did you know she has hair under her arms? Asked Mom. I do know that by now, Mom. And okay, she's a little different, but she's also smart and sweet and likes you guys, and hell, she's Jewish too. Does she like the socks? Asked my brother. That's not important, Robbie. It is too. Dad ended the spat with a simple wave of his hands. Enough. I vote we bring the girl in and let her speak for herself. I sighed with relief. Everything would now be resolved in minutes. Fresh off her nearly impossible charming of Irv Gropnik, Helen had Mom and Dad eating granola out of her hand in no time. Promised to clean all the dishes after every meal, to only cook healthy meal options for the family if she was asked, and to babysit Robbie any time that was needed. I'm not a baby, he shrieked. She'd be gone by Labor Day and the start of the school year unless an opportunity opened for her somewhere before then. But in the meantime, she looked forward to hanging with her new tribe and being on hand for the big whizzle-ball game that means so much to my best friend Joey. My parents, already charmed by Helen for their own personal reasons, made a feeble attempt at exasperation but gave in and joined her for a fresca toast. I gave Helen extra bedding and helped her set up her temporary quarters on the basement couch. Her long black hair fell naturally over one of her shoulders as she helped me tuck in the bottom sheet, and she still seemed to be on a grateful high. I gotta say, your old man is a mensch, and your mom is a menschess for helping make this happen. Yeah, they got their moments. Not everyone over 25 years old is the enemy, except, I hesitated a moment. You should have seen these racist goons at the country club yesterday. Her face darkened. What goons? Oh, not even worth talking about. This bar where my dad's new black friend Bill wasn't allowed to get a drink. Are you kidding me? Who was it? Just some local mafia creeps are in with the place. Big nose somebody. She dropped the top sheet she had been holding. We have to go over there, like right now. Helen, come on. It's over. No, it isn't. The struggle is never over. Didn't your dad say anything? Of course he did. Then his friend needs to sue them or call the NAACP. It's just a stupid bar at a golf club. I don't care if it was at a baby shower. Racist behavior cannot stand. Upstairs, I could hear Mom and Dad's low voices suddenly go silent. Helen, calm down. You're getting all weird. Damn straight I am. Everything okay down there? Mom yelled from the kitchen. Fine, I said, then grabbed one of Helen's hands. Listen, we've given you a place to crash, as you called it, so don't screw it up. She was breathing hard, her face still redder than a chili pepper. Then she let go of me and violently took her rage out on the pillow she was about to cover. Sorry, I just get so impatient with the world when it won't change. I know. For the next few weeks, though, how about we just change the sheets? She snickered a little, then gave me a make-up smooch on the cheek. Helen accompanied me to Irv's the next few days, where, as I predicted, her cheery hosting ways delighted the customers and made an instant fan out of Irv, though he didn't seem to be in a hurry to offer her a real job. After a full day on her feet, she was complaining about her too tight sneakers, so we took a bus down to Woolworth's before they closed so she could get some cheap new shoes. The route back to our neighborhood went along Meadow Street, past the Storch Library and a crop of ancient stately homes above the river, and Helen suddenly turned to me. Hey, are those the houses with the secret underground railroad tunnels you were telling me about? I looked at her. Obviously, the racist golf club incident was still simmering. Well, it's kind of a rumor. I've never actually seen those tunnels, so it could be a lot of baloney. Why do you say that? Because I know about things. Anyway, let's find out. She yanked the cord above our seat and the driver braked at the next corner. Are you kidding? We'll be late for supper. History doesn't eat, Joey. Every house on this stretch was a football field away from the road. Each owner would have had at least 5 minutes to either call the police or release the hounds before we even got to a front door. A leafy side road called Bird's Nest Lane wound its way toward the river between two of the lots, and Helen hustled us down it. Harriet Tubman went back and forth to the south like a dozen times to bring slaves up north, but far as I know, never came through here. I don't think she was the only one, I said. Yeah, but there was more slave freedom action up and around through Canada than there was Massachusetts. How far does this road go? I'm not sure. There's poison ivy in the woods here, you know. We got pants on. Anyway, the Underground Railroad wasn't really underground, and it wasn't really a railroad, so that's why I'm crying baloney already. Whoa! An overgrown path led off to the right, just under the small cliff that two of the houses were perched on. Helen's eyes popped, and she took my hand, led me into the local wilderness. The vines and brush and tree trunks were so dense the path more or less disappeared, but we carefully picked our way along the foot of the cliff. If those tunnels exist, this has to be where they are, she whispered. We peered up at the two houses, trying to gauge where any secret tunnels might be, but came up with only hanging tree roots. I gave up easy and turned to go back, but Helen poked my arm and bounded ahead. I stood there, watched her disappear into the woodsy gloom. It was quiet except for the sound of a few snapped twigs, and then she let out a weird whistle that sounded like a teething squirrel. Joey! I carefully followed her in, trying to avoid any ground growth that looked shiny. She was standing beside a dark opening in the cliff that was framed by vines, dead branches, and who knew what else. The cavity that led inside resembled a portal to the underworld. What do you think? She asked. About what? Looks more like a hole than a tunnel. You're a little smaller than me. Want to try and squeeze in? Are you nuts? What are you afraid of? Nothing. It's just what? Dark? This could be one of the secret house entrances. But I thought you said the Underground Railroad didn't exist. No, I just said it wasn't underground or a railroad. But that doesn't mean some rich marshmallow freak in the 1800s didn't dig himself a tunnel to try and get in on the slave running action. That's crazy. I think maybe you're just nervous about what might be in there. There's nothing in there. Well, won't hurt to find out then. Knowledge is power. All right, Jesus. The sun had dropped in the sky, and a shock of orange light conveniently fell on the gaping hole. I crouched, moved a few hanging roots to the side, then dropped on my knees and ducked inside. I was expecting the worst, spiders, rats, a mummified hobo, but found nothing but dank air, cigarette butts, empty beer cans, and chewing gum wrappers. The hole also kept going and widened a bit. Was it even a tunnel? Did you meet Harriet yet? Shut up. I was able to stand a few more feet in, and my foot hit an empty bottle of Rolling Rock. I think people just party in here sometimes. Come on in if you want. She hesitated a moment, tried to decide the best way to manage this. Then she said, screw it, dropped on her belly and slithered inside, brushed herself off as she got to her feet and let her eyes adjust to the darkness. Huh, you know what this is? I told you, a hangout. She peered ahead into the void, felt the top and sides of the opening like an archaeologist. No, it's that weird private spot where two characters in a romance movie find themselves and actually kiss for the first time. Didn't we already do that? Yeah, no sense overdoing things. Anyway, if I was a black person running from the law, and I don't mean a slave, I'd hide out here in a second. Or maybe anyone running from the law. I thought about Gene Remar after lighting off those M80s. Maybe, but racism's got to be front and center. And Vietnam? Just an endless bunch of anti-Asian stuff, if you ask me. Well, now I know why you flipped over that story about my dad's friend. Yeah. What was the mobster's name again? Forget it, Helen. We were a half hour late getting home. Helen evaporated my mother's annoyance right away and helped her make a salad, then loaded the dishwasher afterwards. My dad really wasn't in the mood to hear about the history of Harriet Tubman while he ate his tube pasta and meat sauce, but Helen offered it anyway, so he smiled and nodded whenever he could. Helen slept late on Monday because the deli was closed. It was a sunny morning, but a little less warm, so I rushed out to mow a few neighborhood lawns. The Raskoviches weren't home, but I could see their pretty Brazilian maid, who Mr. Raskovich seemed to get extra friendly with sometimes, washing a window. I finished their back lawn, then curved around to Belmont and a few of my other customers. Belmont was also where Bertie lived. I slipped closer to the curb to go right by his house, but for some reason accidentally passed it the first time. And then I discovered the reason. Their lawn hadn't been mowed in weeks. The curtains were off the windows, and a sad gloom dripped over the place even before I saw the "For Sale" sign someone had spiked into the yard. Bertie? Shit! Bertie? I stood there in horror and disbelief, practically pulled my elbows over my head. Unlike Scotty Vezzo's family, I knew in a flash why they had suddenly moved away, and was both furious and full-blown panicky. After a half hour of cursing, punching my pillow, and a bunch of round-robin phone calls with Izzy and Jean, they joined me on the back porch, their faces as combustible as mine. We can't beat them, I crowed. Should we call it off? It's not that we can't beat them, said Izzy, calm for a change. It just got a lot harder, that's all. Jean's face smoldered. You think so? First without Scotty and now without Bertie? Either we got 10 times less of a chance now or no chance. Golf course, poo brains, mumbled Robbie, who slipped onto the porch in his pajamas when my back was turned, his eyes wet from no doubt mourning the loss of his new friend. Okay, it sucks, said Izzy, big time, but instead of crying about it, maybe we just come up with a new strategy that doesn't involve Bertie's speed. Great, said Jean. Like what? Just yell at him? Cuss him out? Not the worst idea, I said, feeling well red all of a sudden. The old Giants manager, John McGraw, used to tell his players to do that. Fine, said Jean, except when Danny's goon squad jumps you, I'm not sure I'll be around. Who's getting jumped now? Said a female voice behind us. We turned. Helen stood in the porch doorway with a hot cup of coffee, her peasant dress doubling as a nightgown. Izzy was suddenly enchanted. Jean stared at her in bafflement, then back at me. Oh, I told him, this is Helen. I remember. Cooed, Izzy. Hi. Are you? Yep, spending a little time at Kazatosh. So who's getting jumped? No one, said Jean, suddenly frazzled. We're just having a team meeting. About how to handle the big creep on the other team, right? What was his name? Donnie? Danny Blight, I replied, and I don't think he's dumb. No, he's just Hitler's roommate, added Izzy. Well, I bet the other guys on his team are dumb and, follow him around. What does that matter if they are? Asked Jean. Because that tells me you characters just need to be smarter, or at least make it seem like you are. Trust me, dumb guys get nervous around smarter ones. What good is being smart if they're kicking our asses? Helen rubbed the sleep out of her eyes and took a seat at the porch table with her coffee. Because I don't think they will. Not if you stay cool and come up with some brainy stuff. Brainy stuff? Repeated Izzy. Yeah, stuff that I can help you with. She paused a few seconds and gave us a devilish grin. Mathematics. Huh? My dad's a math professor, and I got A grades in algebra at Newton High. Isn't baseball always using that mathematics stuff? Like batting averages? Asked Izzy. And ERA, chirped Robbie. Right, those. But I bet there's some new math stuff you can just make up for Whizzelball. Like what? I asked. Swing speed per wind gust? That'll work. What else? There is no such thing, Helen. Of course there isn't. But those doofuses aren't going to know that. They'll be so busy trying to figure out what we're talking about, I bet they'll miss a few more pitches and drop a few more balls. I don't have time to think up this crap, said Jean. But I do. She took a very loud sip of coffee. Soon as you hire me as the team mathematician. Really? I asked. Another volunteer job? Tell you what, if someone shows me how to score a baseball game when they get a moment, dibs! Yelled Robbie. I'll score your last few practices and maybe spot some trends, like consistent things each of you do, both good and bad. Information is power. And just like that, we had a team math coach. My dad had a dust-caked Texas Instruments calculator on his underused basement workbench I was able to find batteries for. Helen had told me up in South Hadley her dad was a math professor, but for whatever reason I never assumed it ran in the family. This thing's pretty cool, she said, lightly poked every button on the calculator to make it obvious she never used one. Yeah, the add and multiply and divide buttons are easy to find. Found and already used, Joseph. Now I just need a few pieces of college rule paper and something to write with, please. I wasn't sure if the rules on the 2 paper sheets I removed from my notebook were college or high school ruled, but she grabbed them and thanked me all the same. Robbie corralled her for an hour after lunch and showed her how he scored the Red Sox's 4-3 loss in Kansas City the day before. Despite his erratic handwriting, she was able to pick up the technique. Robbie never used an official score sheet, just wrote out the play-by-play in linear fashion across a blank sheet of paper. There was a neat stack of them on his bookshelf as tall as an encyclopedia volume. Our practice on Tuesday was pretty standard. Helen watched it all from the porch with her lined paper and Bic pen. When I went over to ask how it was going, she waved me off, then sat there under our dim stand-up lamp for the next few hours, jabbed the calculator, and scribbled away. She was still there after the practice ended. All I could do was peek out at her from the kitchen window, kind of mesmerized. So far, I'd done a good job of keeping us on a friend's basis, but Helen had this reckless momentum that was impossible to ignore, sort of like a runaway train, and I knew it would be tough to stay on the rails with her. The mysterious letter I got the next day in the mail had been typed on a piece of Robert Blight's stationery from Mortec Industries. Only 4 shopping days left for fairy ball bats and new pairs of balls. Your friendly future destructor, Danny. Something about the note really bugged me. I went and grabbed the one that came from the Collier Street group and put them side by side. Sure enough, the O letters in each note had the exact same fuzzy gray dots inside them. Home Defense Association, my butt. I wouldn't even mention the letter to the others, and especially not to Helen, who was up till midnight each day generating mysterious math wizardry. The big game was on Saturday, and we had to make our final 2 practices count without any distractions. Izzy and Jean showed up on Thursday at noon, Robbie also present. We waited around the pitcher's mound for Helen to emerge from the porch, a dozen sheets of lined paper tucked under the clamp on her clipboard. Her peasant dress was now a dress again. If I had another day, I probably could have come up with another crap ton of radical stuff, but this is a good start. You ready? We nodded. MASH. We stared at each other. Mrs. After Swing Height. MASH. Robbie is the worst at this, so he'll have to lower his hands on the swing. Jean is the best, with a 6.8, so don't change. Izzy and Joey are about the same, at 5.4, so try and flatten out to get more line drives. I have to ask, is this statistic for real? Damn straight. I'll get to the ones that aren't. What was my batting average in the last practice? Asked Jean. She leafed through a few sheets on her clipboard. 438. Wow, he said, puffed up like a rooster. Teddy ball game here. Izzy hit 528, she added, making Izzy grin at Jean. The area where we have to tighten up is the BFF. The what? The Butterfinger factor. Even wearing gloves, there's way too many balls bouncing off everyone's hands. Now, I don't have a clue if they can catch the ball, but we'll trot out the super special secret statistics I came up with just for them when the time's right. She lowered the clipboard with a quick nod. Okay, ready? Ready for what? What do you think? More practice. Just as we hoped the appearance of being smart would affect Danny's team, Helen watching over us with her wacky number creations gave us more focus and confidence during our final scrimmage. We all hit and caught the ball better, and Robbie even came within 5 inches of putting one on the porch roof. Robbie had really taken to Helen, and used her as his own personal math coach. She would sit with him for an hour each night, help him practice his multiple additions and subtractions he knew he'd soon be learning in 7th grade. Being his instant summer tutor also made her more chummy with Mom, and a couple of times I caught them doing dishes together, pleasantly filling each other in on favorite all-time movies, Mom's Arena, and favorite folk protest songs, Helen's. If this was squatting, it sure made for a harmonious household. You've been listening to The Porch Roof Classic by Jeff Pullman. This retro baseball podcast novel was made possible by Spotify for podcasters and Buzzsprout. Be sure to basket catch another episode next week. If you enjoyed this podcast and would like to contribute, go to buymeacoffee.com/jpullman54v. Thanks.